Good morning, everybody. Welcome into the Partyline program here on All Night Radio. Thank you so much for joining us on this Tuesday morning, May the 10th, 2016. Bill Buchanan here. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, with interesting guests and topics. Thank you very much for joining us. This is a candidate forum. We've done a whole series of these, but this is a candidate forum for state representative candidates for District 18. And Keith Strahan and Earnest Bailes have both been kind enough to say they would participate. They're both in our studios right now. The programs are just exactly as we've done the several others, but in deference to those who may not have heard some of our other programs, each candidate will start out with a maximum 3-minute opening statement. We'll signal the candidates when there's about 30 seconds left to go in their 3 minutes. Other than that, we'll try not to distract them in any way. And when the time is up, when time has expired, we'll also signal that. The only distractions here in the studio should be bringing questions in here to us from you who are the callers. We'll do in the order that they appear on the ballot. Keith Strahan will go first. Earnest Bailes will go second. And that order on the ballot is chosen by the flip of a coin, by the draw of a lot, just to make sure it's completely fair, and that's been done quite some time ago. At the end of the program, when we do the closing statements, we'll do it in the reverse order. So then Earnest Bailes will go first, Keith Strahan will go last, and that's the way the candidates will work. Now, how do you work? You're the really important part of all this. No disrespect to our candidates at all. But what we really want this program to do is be something special, something useful for our listeners. And these candidates are running for an office over a 3-county area: Liberty County, Walker County, and San Jacinto County. Almost went blank. But at any rate, these candidates are running for an office to try to serve that particular area as your state representative. Of course, John Otto, who was the longtime state representative, opted not to run for re-election this time. And so these are the two of the candidates that sought that office, and they're the two leading vote getters from the original primary, and they are running in runoff. And when nobody got more than 50% of the vote, then we had the runoff, and Keith Strahan and Earnest Bailes were in that runoff, and they're here today. And as far as you're concerned, if you've got questions for them, please, no speeches. You will not be on the air. Just call the radio station, tell our staff members the question you want to ask, and like I said, no speeches, please. And they'll write them down and pass them in here to us. I will reword those questions if they're not intended to be. I don't know how to say this. I've already had 4 of them like this, so I've been working on it. But if they're intended to make speeches and not make speeches, I'm going to reword them as best I can. I'll do the best I can, but I'm doing it on the fly here, so just have a little patience with me. And the candidates will do fine because they've been doing this for a long time. I will probably struggle with it. We'll do the best I can to make them just a question and not a statement about the candidates and their philosophies. We'll just do the best we can on that. But we'll put the questions to the candidates from you. If you have a question, give us a call at the radio station. The phone number is 936-336-5793. That's 936-336-5793. You can also call us on our toll-free line if you're calling from anywhere throughout our listening area and you have an interest in this race and a question you want to ask. We have a toll-free number. It's 1-800-356-5793. That's 1-800-356-5793. And then we'll put the questions to them as we progress through the program. Get to the the closing statements, then we'll do that, as I said, a maximum of 1 minute. We'll signal them when there's 30 seconds to go, and signal them also when their time has expired. So that's pretty much the setup. I don't think I mentioned the fax line, did I, Eric? Okay, he's not going to answer me, so I'll just tell you the fax line is also usable, and the fax line number here is 936-336-5250. 936-336-5250. Yes, we have email at the radio station. No, we're not that archaic, but what we have found is that a lot of times those things come in some cases, in past experience, 30, 40, 45, 50 minutes after the program's over and gone, everybody's gone, and then here comes some more programs. They get caught up in spam and things like that on the internet, so we are not using the internet as a source of getting our questions for that reason. That's happened to us several times, and the easy way for us is just to let you call us or use the fax machine, whichever is best for you. And I realize everybody doesn't have a fax machine at their fingertips, but it's the best we could do. So the best way is probably just to call us and tell our staff members what the question is. They'll pass it in here to us, and we'll do the best we can to convey that to you, to the candidates. All right, so let's go to work. And as we said a while ago, our candidates are Keith Strahan and Earnest Bailes. Keith Strahan's going to go first, and Keith, the next 3 minutes or any part of that 3 minutes you choose is yours. And thank you, sir, very much for being with us.
Thank you, Bill, so much. It's always a pleasure to come in here and speak with you and speak with the citizens of Liberty County. It's always fun and exciting whenever elections come around and you get to hear the candidates and what they believe and their thoughts and everything. And so, as you know, I'm Keith Strahan, and I am running to be your next state representative. Throughout on March 1st, as you well know, we came in first out of 6 candidates, and so and I'm very excited for that, and we were very pleased with that because it came through hard work and determination and a consistent message. But unfortunately, Bill, and unfortunate for the voters, what has happened during a runoff is people try to have a contrast and try to separate themselves from one another. And unfortunately, my opponent has, on several occasions, chosen to lie or distort my experience or my background, and that's unfortunate. Because what is clear is that the people of Liberty County and the people of this district need to send someone who's going to represent them on conservative issues in the Texas House. And so here's the clear contrast: is you have a chance to send a principled conservative like Keith Strahan to the Texas House, someone who's going to stand for your values, someone who's going to fight for conservative principles, someone who's going to fight for life, liberty, and property in the Texas House, or you have the contrast between someone who has repeatedly said that they're going to compromise. Well, when I look at Austin and when I look at legislation that passes through, compromise is what's got us here. Compromise is what leads us towards the path of socialism and liberal policies. Compromise is not what the people of Liberty County need. They need principles. They need someone to come back to Liberty County and tell them the truth. That's the contrast. And that's why people saw that during the primary, and that's why we were voted first in the primary, and that's why we went on May 24th, is because the people want a principled conservative, not someone who wants to choose to lie and distort about someone's past or compromise in the Texas House. So if you are a principled conservative, someone who stands for life, liberty, property, someone who loves the Constitution, someone who loves limited government and low taxes and low regulation, then I urge you to vote for Keith Strahan on May 24th. Early voting is the 16th through 20th, and we'd love for you to come out, and if you have any questions, strahanfortexas.com is my website. Feel free to reach out to me, and I would love to talk to each and every one of you. And thank you so much, Bill.
And thank you, sir, very much for your opening statement. He mentioned the early voting. We'll carry it a little bit further. Early voting is May 16th through the 20th, as Keith said, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the following locations here in Liberty County. Jack Hartel Building, that's on San Jacinto Street, just immediately north of the railroad track. Hardin City Hall on County Road 2010. Cleveland Civic Center, 210 Peach Street in Cleveland. And the Dayton Community Center, 801 South Cleveland Street in Dayton. That's going on, as I said, once again, May 16th through May 20th. That's Monday, May 16th through Friday, May 20th, 7 a to 7 p. And we hope you want to participate in early voting. If that's not what you want to do, then the actual runoff election day is May 24th. And these are the 2 candidates on there. And there are no Democrats, so there's going to be this is going to decide who's the state representative for District 18, which makes this runoff election doubly important. We hope you'll want to participate in it. All right, let's go now to the next candidate on the ballot. And the next candidate on our program, Earnest Bailes, is with us here in our studios. Ernest, we thank you, sir, very much for being with us. And the next 3 minutes, or any part of that 3 minutes, is yours. Good morning, sir.
First of all, Bill, I appreciate you guys having us on this morning, as well as everybody who took the time to tune in and listen and learn more about the political process. As Bill said, my name is Earnest Bailes. I was born and raised there in Shepherd, Texas, just right down the road. I come from a long line of working class people. We've been there in San Jacinto County about 5 generations. My mom and her family from here in Liberty County. She was born in the old Dayton Hospital and graduated from right there in Tarkington. The reason I got in this race is because first of all, I think most of the problems that we're in are the fact that we have so many attorneys and bureaucrats in Austin. They write the rules and the laws and the regulations to their better interest, and then we have working class individuals like myself and a lot of the people that are right here in the district that have to find a way to work within those regulations and be able to have to make a living. Born on a dairy and beef cattle operation, we ran commercial trucks and heavy equipment. The reason I point that out is both the dairy and the commercial trucking were state and federally regulated. I've had a Class A CDL driving trucks since I was 17, have done just a lot of just outright work throughout the years, and that's what's made me into the man that I am. And I think we need more working class individuals. At the end of every day, I know exactly where I'm going home to. I've got a wife. I've got 2 kids, Cinco and Rigby. I've got a home. I have land. My wife's a 3rd grade teacher there in Cold Spring. And I think it's important that we have people that represent our rural interests that even know where they go home to. If there's a question and you don't even know where you live and you move back in simply to run, to push someone else's agenda rather than your own, I think that leads to the problems that we already have. I look forward to having the opportunity to discuss more of the issues with you guys on this program, and just let you guys know that I'm one of us. I know what it means to work for a living and to sit down and have the hard conversations, and I'm realistic. I know what it means to make payroll on Fridays and how to work with people, and I think that that's a very important things that we need in order to have a good, strong rural voice to represent our rural interests there in Austin. Thank you.
And thank you, sir, very much. You've heard the opening statements of both of our candidates now here on our candidate forum. And again, I say this quite often, but I want to repeat it again. This is not a debate. This is not intended to have a give and take type of debate. There's other formats for that. Our particular case is just to let you get better acquainted with these candidates and their understanding and knowledge of the job that they're running for and how they would serve in that office for you if you choose them, if you vote for them to serve you as District 18 state representative. That's the goal here with this program, and we hope it's the goal of our candidates here as well. Now, let's go to the first, some of the questions that we have here now, and I'm going to repeat our invitation to you out there who are listening. We've got several questions already, but if you will, give us a call here if you have a question for either one of these candidates, Keith Strahan or Earnest Bailes, and call here at the radio station at 936-336-5793. Again, don't make a speech. Please just state your question, and they'll get it in here to us. That'll make it a lot easier on me to reword these things. I won't have to reword them if they're done well, and we'll ask the questions of the candidates as best we can. And again, that was 936-336-5793. From outside the local calling area, 1-800-356-5793. That's 1-800-356-5793. And the one other way you can get your questions here is through our fax machine, and that is 936-336-5250. That's 5250. And we'd love to have your questions here during the course of the program. Trying to figure out where to start here. I'll just start with this one right here. We're going to ask this of both questions, and we'll start with you, Earnest Bailes. Have you always been a Republican, and as a Republican, do you have Republican values? Have they always been your values? We'll try that again. Have you always been a Republican, and have the Republican values always been your values? That's the question, sir.
Yes, Bill, I have. I've always been a Republican as a business owner and just a working class guy. I think it's important that our hard-earned money that we work hard for each and every day, we're able to keep as much of that in our pocket so that we can support our families, support our community, and those are things that I've always done. I've worked hard in order to build a successful business. I mean, that's not something I started on a whim. I started that right out of college. I started several other businesses back when I was in high school and through college, and I've always worked. And by working, you always have to understand how important that hard-earned money is and try to keep as much of that in your pocket so that you can provide for both your family, give back to your community, and just based on those true, strong, conservative principles. Thank you.
The question goes to you. You want me to repeat it? Because you did a lousy job of asking the first time.
No, sir, I think I got it. Absolutely, I've always been a Republican. I remember the first, in Liberty High School, in 2000, we had a watch party for the election, and I remember putting up George W. Bush signs in Liberty and in the high school, and we sat there and watched. But unfortunately, as we all remember, we didn't learn that evening who was going to be our president. It was several weeks later until we found out who was going to be a president. But ever since then, I was fascinated by the political process, but not only just that, of espousing conservative principles. When When I was in college, I interned for Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison. And when I was there, one of the unique opportunities I had was doing constituent services. And that's where I fell in love with that part of politics. And that part of being a representative and representing your people is that you represent the people vis-a-vis the government. And I worked with an amazing woman named Joyce Sibley in Senator Hutchison's office. And I got to see firsthand what it's like for someone in elected office to be able to help and assist their citizens against the government. And that was awesome. That was so fun to see. And it's something that ignited that passion for me, is that I want to be a servant of the people. And I believe the Republican Party is the place where someone with conservative values can go and represent their people. And especially here in Liberty County, where, you know, we are a Republican county. We're a red county, and we believe in that life, liberty, and property. And so that's what I believe, and that's what I'm going to go to Austin and represent.
All right, this question goes to you, Keith Strahan. This caller would like to know whether or not each candidate pays property taxes in Liberty County or any place in House District 18.
I don't own the house I live in. It's our family home. A couple of years ago, we sold, after Rita, we sold all our land. We had farmland in Chambers County, and so all that was sold. And ever since then, I was in school, and I was assisting my parents who live in the house down here in Liberty. And when my mom had to move to Houston with my father, I took the family home. And so and that's some place where I live and a place where I grew up, and I'm very happy to live in the place where I grew up.
All right. To Earnest Bailes, this caller again would like to know whether or not you have paid property taxes in Liberty County or any place in House District 18.
Without a doubt. I mean, it wasn't by coincidence that I came back. I didn't inherit and simply take over something that was given to me. I worked hard and earned that and built that with my own two hands. The house that I live in with my wife, I built when I was a junior in high school. 2 weeks before my wife and I got married, we added 2 bedrooms, and we've lived for 12 years in 880 square feet. We're building a new house now, and paying for that out of pocket on a tract of land that I'd bought right out of college. I received my tax statement today where I'm paying $5,000 in taxes for a house that is not even completed and that I don't currently live in. I pay taxes for the home that I'm building, for the home that I live in, for the office that I own. I don't just simply work out of my car in a coffee shop. I'm a valid business, and I have an office that I work out of, as well as landholdings where I run cattle. So yes, without a doubt, I pay taxes, and I pay a fair amount of taxes here in this district.
All right, this caller would like to know, and I'll go to Keith Strahan for this, would like to know, because it was specifically had something to do with your opening statement. This caller would like to know what you were referring to in your opening statement when you referred to Bailes being a liar.
We don't need to, I don't want to really dwell on that, but the matter of fact is that there's the insinuation that I'm a carpetbagger, that I'm not from this district, that somehow I just moved here, and that this isn't my home and where I live. And Bill, not to make this personal, but you remember calling my baseball and football games. You know where I'm from. The people of South Liberty County know where I'm from. They saw me grow up here. They saw me be a youth pastor at First Baptist Church. They saw me be a teacher in Dayton ISD. And so, and they saw me work hard to get where I am. And Liberty County, I know, especially Liberty, and the teachers that I talk to are very proud that one of their own has been able to be successful in academics and do what I've been able to do. But unfortunately, the insinuation is that I don't live here, that I'm not from here, that I just moved here on a whim in order to run for office. Like that's not true. I am part of this district. This is my home. This is where I grew up. I was born in Kirsten Memorial Hospital. Well, they don't deliver babies anymore, but I was born there. This is my home. And so that is the insinuation, because you have to draw a contrast, and I get that. Because I went to school in Houston, and I was trying to practice law in Houston in order to learn skills in order to best represent this community. Somehow that's a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad thing. South Liberty County and Liberty County should be proud of one of their own.
All right, let's go to Earnest Bailes now, and based on some things that you have said, this question comes to you. Do you believe lawyers...
Can I respond back to that or not?
No, this is not a debate. If you want to use part of your time to respond to it, that's your choice, that's fine. But the question is, do you believe lawyers don't work? Because based on something that you had said earlier, that's the question from this caller. Do you believe that lawyers don't work?
No, that's not the case without a doubt. I have several friends that are lawyers and have done business with lawyers throughout. The big difference in between those lawyers And my opponent, they actually have an office, they have a practice. As Keith said back in February, he started his law practice on a whim. I have a lot more than starting my business on a whim. And that's just the big difference. As far as Keith was solicited to run in this area, I'm not doubting or questioning where he graduated high school. He graduated from right here in Liberty, Texas, and there's no question about that whatsoever. Also, the fact is, Keith's first utility bill in his name in this district was October the 20th, 2015. His law practice is still registered in Houston, Texas, and per the State Bar Association, he has to keep his permanent residence on file, and that's still listed in Houston, Texas. So, as far as the insinuation that Keith still lives in Houston, that's not a question whatsoever. Keith will buy his parents' house on the condition if he wins. If not, he'll go back to his apartment in Houston. So the question is not whether attorneys work or not. There are a lot of attorneys that work. And then there are also a lot of attorneys who have simply lived their life based on political posturing so that they can climb a ladder. And that's very different than a lot of the lawyers who I have business with and who I respect greatly.
All right, very good. Earnest Bailes, this next question going to go to you. What are your positions on illegal immigration?
I think illegal immigration is a reason we're in a lot of the issues we're in now. If we look at positive economic growth in an area, they're going to look at three main areas. They're going to look at education, they're going to look at available housing, and they're going to look at health care. All three of those issues are directly impacted in a negative way based on our inability to follow the laws on illegal immigration. Our school systems are flooded with individuals who come here illegally. We have an obligation as a state. We've accepted that obligation to make sure that they have access to a fair and balanced education. With that, we're required, in order to keep in those parameters, to have ESL teachers. That's a huge burdensome on the schools and on the tax-paying citizens right here in this district who pay the taxes and do everything right. And you have people who don't do things right, and they're able to have better opportunities. As far as like back at home, I think my mom runs some office for me. My dad and I partner on a cattle operation. They pay right at $1,280 a month in health insurance and have a $25,000 deductible. That's a crying shame when you have illegal immigrants right here who have access to free health care and they're rewarded for doing things the wrong way. I think that we have to make sure that our borders are secure, and we have to make sure that the laws which are currently on our books are upheld, and so we protect the safety of our citizens right here, and we take care of those who pay into the system and do things right, and therefore not reward those who don't do things the right way.
Your position, Keith, on illegal immigration?
Well, first and foremost, we got to secure the border. Constitutionally, it's incumbent upon the federal government to do that. But as we all know, as conservatives and Republicans in Texas, the federal government's not going to do that. So it's going to be the burden of Texas in order to do that. That's the first thing we need to do. And the second thing is we need to end the draws that are bringing in illegal immigrants. First, one of the statistics I just read is that over about 50% of illegal immigrant households take some sort of welfare. Whereas the number for legal residents of Texas, it's low 20s, if not high teens. So almost double, if not triple, what Texas residents pay. Illegal immigrants are taking out of our system and taking from welfare and taking from those hard-earned taxpayer dollars. And so first thing we need to do is secure the border. And the second thing we need to do, we need to end the draws that are attracting illegal immigrants and what is actually a strain on our economy. Up to $15 billion is what Texans pay in order for illegal immigrants to stay here, and I think that's a travesty. $15 billion, that's almost how much we pay on education alone. So that needs to change.
All right. This question is addressed to Keith Strahan. We'll try to put it to both our candidates if I can reword it correctly. It says here that you advocate doing away with the marriage license. Can this ever be passed by the state legislature? First of all, is that your position?
So this question, probably where they're getting this from is after Obergefell, which was the Supreme Court decision that legalized gay marriage throughout the United States and including Texas. Texas, which has a constitutional amendment that says that we only recognize a marriage between one man and one woman. So therefore, we have a a Supreme Court dictating to Texas what our values are. And I completely, especially as an attorney, I completely understand that if government got out of the marriage business, we'd have a lot of issues, whether it comes to family law and those types of issues. However, I believe and firmly do that the more government is involved in marriage, the more it's going to be harm to marriage. And as someone who prays for a wife every day, someone who wants that family, that's something that I hold sacred. Marriage is a sacred covenant between one man, one woman, and God. And so that is something that we need to protect. And by government, especially the federal government, the Supreme Court getting involved in marriage, has completely harmed marriage in Texas. And so I think it's something the Texas legislature absolutely needs to address.
How would you address that, Keith, the business of one man, one wife? and you would be Ernest, not Keith, but that's okay.
No, Bill, I appreciate it. And that's it's interesting to take a seat back and just sit and listen. And one thing that I'll do, if I take a stand on something, I'm going to stick with it. Keith has taken the stand on multiple interviews that are being recorded where he says absolutely he will fight hard to do away with the marriage license. They've also went on record saying that they'll work hard to do away with all professional licensing. So that includes all healthcare providers, all teachers, all attorneys, and things like that. So I think it's important if you have somebody who's going to take a stand, they take a stand that they know is realistic and that they can stand behind. The issue with addressing the fact of marriage license, I think that the sanctity of marriage and the Judeo-Christian belief, that's deeply rooted in the church, and the government has no right to interfere and force anything upon that church. And that is my strongest problem with the whole issue. Marriage, the sanctity of marriage is between a man and a woman, and the government has no right whatsoever to dictate and to tell a church that they have to do otherwise just for the sake of political correctness. Because I think that political correctness will ultimately be the death of our great nation, and that's what's led us down the road that we're already on.
All right, this one to you, Ernest. I'll do better on the name. Do you support constitutional carry, and will you sponsor or co-sponsor legislation to make constitutional carry the law in Texas?
I support constitutional carry. Now, I have one caveat with that, and I know it may not be popular in all walks, but I don't mind saying it. I've said it from the beginning, and I will stand behind this. I support constitutional carry for law-abiding citizens. If you have proven your inability to follow the laws, or you're someone who just got out of prison there in Huntsville, Texas, do I think you're an individual who needs to be able to walk out, strap a 9mm on your hip, and get right on the Greyhound bus? I cannot support that. And a lot of people say, well, they've served their time. That's no different than myself as a parent. If I had two daughters and I had a convicted sex offender or a child rapist, and once they've served their time, would I feel comfortable having them locked in the same room as my two daughters? The answer is no. So with that, I do support constitutional carry. However, it is for law-abiding citizens. I think that's responsible, and we have to make sure that we have the safety of our people and of our district at mind, and make sure that we always fight to uphold that first and foremost.
Thank you, Ernest. Let's go to Keith. Do you sponsor constitutional carry, and will you sponsor or co-sponsor legislation to make constitutional carry the law in Texas?
I absolutely will co-sponsor or sponsor that. And just real quick, I'm pretty sure that I did address and didn't change my position. I'm pretty sure I said Texas legislature should address marriage licensing. But anyways, but that's true. It's absolutely true that thou shalt not be infringed means that thou shalt not be infringed. And what Ernest is alluding to is something we call due process, and that all Americans and all Texans have a right, have certain and unalienable constitutional rights that are guaranteed to them that can only be deprived of them through due process. So these instances, the fear in the instances of which we're talking about criminals coming out of jail is just not true. They've already gone through the due process, and those rights can be taken from them if they've adequately been through a constitutional due process hearing whereby you can take those rights from them. But as far as everyone else, it shall not be infringed, it shall not be infringed. There's no debate about that.
I'm going to try to reword this one in such a way that we can get it. First of all, the question is going to be directed to Keith. It has been understood by this caller that you have stated your support for the Texas public school system, but it also says here that one of your one of your planks is school choice, i.e. vouchers, where the Texas taxpayers would provide money for some families to send their children to private schools, and funds for the public school system instead of funds for the public school system. Where are you on that regarding public education in Texas as far as it applies to these issues this questioner has called about?
I appreciate that question. My mom taught elementary school here in Liberty, Texas for 45 years. Education is very important to me. And education is so important to me. I've spent a lot of my 20s trying to build and further my own education. And as far as school choice is concerned, let's take some facts. There are about 59 school choice programs in about 29 states. I think there's one passed in another state recently. The average pull-out rate of all those school choice programs is about 1%. And most of those being in urban areas. So the idea that being for school choice is somehow going to be detrimental to rural school districts is not true. And matter of fact, I've talked to superintendents about that. If we have honest discussions about this, it's not going to change at all that we need to address serious problems in our rural school districts. This is absolutely true. We're going to have to do that. So being for school choice is going to be a marginal, if any, effect on rural school districts. Now, we do need to strengthen them. We need to totally reform school finance. We need to have more local control so that our teachers that are in the classrooms can better understand what's happening in the classroom and can better educate their students. And we also need to dramatically reduce the amount of standardized testing that's going on in Texas.
All right. Do me a favor. I'm not exactly sure how this is going to come out, but one person asked the question. I reworded it a little bit. But this is a question for both of you, and I'll start with you, Earnest Bailes. Compare your two professions, being a lawyer and practicing law, or working in the cattle business and raising cattle and doing those kinds of things that you've done most of your life, as you talked to us about here.
I can honestly sit here today and I say Keith and I are both good guys. We just took very different approaches in life, and I really don't fault either. Myself, I took an opportunity to come back home because home was important to me. I wanted to give back and raise my family right here. I mean, it was important to me to get married to my high school sweetheart and the lady that I have enjoyed spending time with. And like I said, I wanted. She is the rock that helps me be a better person at the end of the day. So with that being said, we came back and I bought land, I built an office, and I had to think outside of the box in order to make that work. I have built the only fully automated mobile lab in the United States. That took a lot of gumption, and that took a lot of risk. If you're going to bet on somebody, bet on yourself. I thought outside of the box. We cover the South Central United States. I have a very diverse clientele, and we cover between 750 to 1,000 active clients within a given year, a 5-state region, and we specialize in a surgical procedure, laparoscopic artificial insemination, and that's we're the largest service provider in the state. And Texas is the largest state in that industry. I think what I did took a lot more gumption, took a lot more thinking outside of the box and being able to identify issues and solve problems. And I just think it says a lot more about a man's character that, I mean, as Keith plainly stated in the interview, he started his business on a whim. I started my business to support my family. And I thought that was one important thing to do. I started a very successful business. We've worked hard to make that successful. And, I mean, it's a permanent business. We have an office. We don't work out of our car. Like I said, it's very different. We have a very successful business that I've had for 12 years. My opponent started his. I mean, and I would also venture to say, I mean, ask him how many cases he's actually tried. It's very few, if any.
All right, let's put the same question to you, kind sir. Compare your two professions: a lawyer practicing law and a cattle rancher. In the district.
First of all, I am the grandson of a cattle rancher. We actually raised cattle in Chambers County for about a century, from as far as we can calculate, maybe a little longer than that. So, and you know, my grandpa actually, Ernest was a graduate of A&M, and was an engineer for Exxon, and on the weekends and when he was off, actually worked cattle. And that's how I spent my summers in high school. That's how I did. That was my off-season workout, was working out in Chambers County at the ranch. So it's a profession that I absolutely respect and have the utmost respect for. Unfortunately, for our family, we don't have that ranch anymore. Sometimes I miss it. I love going out to the country and working and riding a horse and doing those things. But it was my grandpa had a dream for his kids, and my mom had a dream for me, and it's something that I became passionate about. Is I believe that as a lawyer, I serve people, and it's a shame that I used a colloquialism like on a whim, and I didn't realize it was going to be such a political phrase that was going to be used against me. The fact is that I did insurance defense for a couple of years, and any lawyer will tell you the average cases that actually go to trial are about 2 to 5%. I've actually tried 2 cases in my life, so the amount of cases that I've had, that's actually a higher percentage than most trial lawyers actually have. So as far as that, but right now, what I learned to do as a servant is what I feel as someone as an attorney. I can refer you to the small businesses that I've helped set up and advise them, and people here locally, people all throughout Southeast Texas. That's something that I love about being an attorney. I feel that I am a servant to people, and that's exactly how I take this job as state representative. It's going to be a servant to the people, and I'm absolutely proud of what I've done. I went from from doing insurance defense work to being able to find clients in this environment in order to sustain my own private practice. If you ask a lot of private practice attorneys how much work it takes to have your own practice, it's a lot. I can easily go be an associate and work thousands of hours a year, but I chose something that I thought was beneficial to me, and I have the clients to be able to do that. And so I've been very successful as a private attorney, and I love what I do. Does it mean that I don't miss being on the pasture and on the ranch? Absolutely not. I love that. I think that's an amazing. I got to hang out with a guy here in south of the county that does rice farming. It was fun to go and see how he problem solves throughout the day. I really enjoyed that. But as an attorney, I love my profession. I love helping people.
All right, here's a question, both of that will be interesting. Is either candidate supporting Donald Trump for president? We'll go to you first. He's gonna if he comes out of the convention as the nominee, I will support him. Especially as a Republican, I think that's, look, the alternative is Hillary Clinton. Regardless of what you think about Donald Trump, we cannot have Hillary Clinton as our president. I will, if he becomes out of the convention, I'm thinking there may be a broker convention, but probably not. I've been so focused on this race, national politics are kind of something I don't focus on too much. But if he comes out of the convention as the presumptive nominee or as the nominee, I will support him because we need a Republican president. We don't need Hillary Clinton. All right. Let's go to you, kind sir. Earnest Bailes, are you supporting Donald Trump for president?
As a Republican and a member of the Republican Party, I think it's important that we support the nominee. If we don't support the nominee, we're simply, that serves as a slap in the face to all individuals who went through the political process and voted. And the people spoke, and that is who the majority of the people here in the United States stood behind and said that he should be our next candidate, Republican candidate for president. And if he comes out of the convention, he is someone who I will support because I think it's important in order to keep the party united.
All right. I'm being deluged with questions here, fellas. I don't think in all the time we have done these programs, and I may be wrong on that because we've been doing them for 40 years, I don't think we've ever had this many questions. I'm not exactly sure what it is about your charming personalities, both of you, that has instigated that, but we've got it, and we've got it in a big, big way. What is, and we'll go first to you, Keith, what is your position on the Texas Open Beaches law? Would you allow private landowners to deny beach goers access to Texas beaches?
So this is something that we studied in law school, and it was something that I thought was really interesting when it ever occurred. And this is something that is essentially... as the Cliff Notes version, for those of you who don't know, essentially the state, I don't know the year to be honest, but the state essentially took eminent domain through adverse possession over the coast of Texas. And so it is something that allowed access. Now, someone who is a staunch believer in private property, I do believe that private landowners can own pieces of property. And I think it's if private landowners want to allow people on their beaches and clean it up and make it real nice, and that's fine. Does that mean that I think we should lose Galveston or Crystal Beach or anything like that? No, I think that's something we can't roll back, but I have no issue with private landowners owning beachfront property.
All right. You want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, I'd be glad to.
The beaches question.
Okay, beaches, it's no different where a body of water which is owned by the state, that actual state ownership stops there at the vegetation line. So as a private landowner, you have from the vegetation line back. We ran cattle in Kennefic until the time I was probably 7 or 8, and we had a lot of people that came down and they enjoyed those beaches right there in the bend of the Trinity River. And also ourselves, we have a creek that runs through there. It's a navigable water source, and there are people who come in and claim that they have a right to come in there. As a private property owner, I think I have always stood very solid. I put my money where my mouth is as far as private property owner. Private property rights are key and should be the ultimate supremacy. In regards to beachfront property, as far as, yes, the landowner should be able to own past the vegetation line, but as far as from the vegetation line forward, that's always been a set precedence that is the property of the state, and that goes with that body of water and that water source.
If you joined us late, and we're going to try to get out of here pretty quick, I'm trying to capsule as many of these questions that are being asked more than once. Not doing too good a job at it, but I'll keep trying.
Well, that was the first open beaches question I think we've ever gotten. It was good, though. I like it.
There you go. But we're talking today with Keith Strahan and Earnest Bailes. These two men are candidates in the runoff for the state representative for the state of Texas would replace John Otto in the position he's held for quite a few years. And they're here with us in our studios trying to answer as many questions as possible. District 18 consists of 3 counties, Walker County, San Jacinto County, and Liberty County. And these are going to have to be dealing with problems in all 3 of those counties, as a matter of fact. There was a question on the sheet. There's one sheet here has got 7 or 8 questions on it. There are 6 or 7 questions, and I wanted to try to get as many of them as I possibly could. What is your position? I'm going to start with Earnest Bailes. What is your position on charging property taxes, which are used to operate our schools, cities, and state government? And if not, then how would you fund these government entities? If property tax isn't the answer for you. Okay,
of the 2 candidates in the room, Keith mentioned earlier, no, he's never paid property taxes here in this district. I pay a considerable amount of property taxes in this district. If my argument is strictly self-serving, it would be to do away with all property taxes. However, I'm more realistic and I understand the different dynamics of, I think it's important that we explore other options to be able to move away from this, but we currently don't have any viable options. With property taxes, you look at what they fund. They fund our public schools, they fund our infrastructure, our roads, lots of other things. There's been a lot of talk of going to the consumption tax. One important thing to be mindful of with the consumption tax is if you're over the age of 65, your valuations are locked in. You lose that exemption. If you are the spouse of a service member who lost his life in service, you have an exemption. You lose that. If you're elderly on Social Security on a fixed income budget, that's going to greatly increase the cost of your loaf of bread and also your medication. So there's a lot of other things that we have to look at. We also have to look at the fact, like in San Jacinto County, we don't even have a Walmart. My wife buys her groceries at Walmart in Cleveland sometimes. So should she be discouraged as a resident? Our kids go to school there, spending those tax dollars in the effect of a consumption tax in another county. So essentially what we lead to, and you have places like the Woodlands, which are very rich in retail, all that money is going to go to the state of Texas, and we're going to fight for a Robin Hood system to be no different than we are currently. We're adding more bureaucratic layers in order to help alleviate the problems. And that's where, yes, I wholeheartedly stand behind, we need to find ways to thoroughly address the valuation of the tax system, and we need to not pay any more taxes than we have. We need to be able to spend our own money in our own community and support our organizations, clubs, or however with those dollars rather than trusting that to the federal government to best spend that. But I stand behind and I support the fact that our cities, our communities, and our schools need to be adequately funded, and that is something which I will always stand behind and fully support.
All right, very good. Let's go to you, Keith, on the same question. You want me to repeat it?
No, sir, that's fine. I absolutely stand with the 75% of Republicans in our district that think that property taxes are fundamentally immoral and should be completely abolished. Now, the misconception is that somehow that we're going to do that, we're going to pull the rug out from under roads, schools, and everything else. That's just not true. We, as a Texas legislator, is incumbent and is constitutionally required to fund public schools. But the system in which we have now is not only failed to fully and adequately fund our schools, here, especially here in rural areas, but it's also cost us billions upon billions of dollars on restrictions of transfers of property in Texas. In other words, we're hurting Texas property owners through restricting their transfers of property because of property taxes. And let's even more real example. Devers ISD, just here east of the county, for every dollar that they take in property taxes, they send 88 cents back to the state. You tell me how that's a fair system. It's not a fair system. It's an awful system. And so as far as an alternative, I think actually, no taxation, let's just be honest, no taxation is a perfect system. Anytime you expropriate money from citizenry, that's problematic. But I do think consumption tax is the best alternative. As I see it right now, one of the advantages of a consumption tax is that it encourages savings. And as anyone who studies economics knows that when you encourage saving, you actually build capital in a community. And that's something in Liberty County we desperately need, is to start building capital in order to reinvest in our community and not spending all our wealth on taxes going to the state, which they get to divvy it out however they see fit.
I got to follow that up with a question. How would you, since the suggestion that there would be other ways that maybe a consumption tax, what kind of sales tax or consumption tax will we have to have in order to fund all the services we become accustomed to in Texas, or do we need to do away with a lot of them?
I think that we could adequately and even more, I don't want to get too much more into policy depths of this, and for the listener, especially over radio, but I think about 11% is an adequate replacement. I think it does everything we need to do. And as a matter of fact, when you study the economics of a consumption tax versus a property tax, it actually increases the amount of capital flowing through the state. It allows better transfers of property, whereas landowners, they're not restricted. They don't have to hold the property, or people who want property can buy property and houses. It actually increases wealth in the community. It's not a drain on wealth like property tax system is.
How about you, Earnest Bailes? If you had a consumption tax, or whatever the alternative would be to a property tax, how would you address this in terms of the amount of money it would probably cost for every dollar purchased, or whatever, however you want to couch it?
I think there's huge things that Keith leaving out with his argument. The finances that Keith is citing and looking at, they also include a consumption tax for all real estate transactions. So, and also for every home you built, it's actually going to decrease the number of individuals who actually have land ownership and home ownership as an option, because they're going to be required to pay each and every one of those taxes at the point when they build that unit, or they construct that, or they buy one that's already ready. Those are big things to consider. Like Devers, Texas, what consumption do they have there? In Shepherd, Texas, we had a pipeline go through. They're still working on it right now, same as they are here in Liberty County. And my question is, where is that diesel fuel purchased? Where is that consumption tax going to? Where is that pipe purchased? And where is that consumption tax going to? It's sure not going to Sanderson County. So like I says, we end up in the exact same scenario with it all going back into the state in a Robin Hood system, no different than Keith cited as the issues in Devers, Texas that they do. We are in the same boat, if not more. I don't believe that you should have to pay rent on your land which you own. I think land ownership is sacred. I mean, as a family owner of, we have family land. When I came back, I actually purchased my own land. I wanted to buy into the operation. I didn't simply inherit in the operation. I bought my own land and I paid into the operation. But it's also, we have a lot of things that have to be dealt with, and I am all for moving away from property taxes, paying for our schools and services like that. However, I am pragmatic enough and realistic that it has to be a solid plan to sit down before I can stand up before you like my opponent has and says, I will do away with property taxes. I will not stand here and promise you things which I know I cannot deliver on simply to get your vote. That is not the type of man that I am.
All right. Well, let's go to this as a question. And this has been asked 5 times now. It's been asked 5 times. And so I guess it's a question that's a legitimate question. We'll start with you, Keith Strahan. What are your largest campaign donors from outside District 18?
Largest campaign donor. Well, I have one client that gave me a sizable donation for. I guess he enjoyed my work as an attorney for him. But I also I've been endorsed and supported by the conservative grassroots group in Texas, like Empower Texans, Texans for Fiscal Responsibility. That's the same organization. And then Texas Right for Life, which is the premier organization in Texas that it fights for from life, from preborn to end of life issues. And so I'm very proud of those who support me. The conservatives in Texas have backed my campaign because they know that I'm the principal candidate that's going to go to Austin and fight for conservative principles. And so those are the main donors. I would say the biggest contributors, and there are also individuals that have contributed to my campaign who know me personally and know that what I stand for, and know that I'm going to fight for conservative values in Texas with no strings attached because they know my principles, so therefore they're going to support me.
Okay, Ernest, who would be your largest campaign donors from outside District 18?
There's one thing I want to hit on first, and I'm very glad to answer that. One thing that there's a fellow, Tim Dunn, who's a very wealthy old man. He actually is the one who funds all the organization which my opponent is funded by, and they have something called the Legislator Scorecard. And we tout individuals as being the most conservative representative. What that is, once you sign a pledge that they're going to actually endorse you, they cover all your expenses, they pay for you the ability to run, and you are told before every vote is cast exactly how to vote. And if you have a 100% rating on the legislative scorecard, which they do in-house, that means 100% of the time you vote as they tell you to vote, which has nothing to do with representing the rural district, rural interest of HD 18 right here. I will tell you, as far as finances, I am the largest contributor to my own race. I think that's something very important to point out. I mean, I have fought hard to be successful in business and be able to afford to take this on. If you can't, you end up prostituting yourself out to other individuals for their interests rather than your own. As far as outside, we're very fortunate to have 2 grassroots organizations. One was Texas Farm Bureau. Texas Farm Bureau is the largest rural grassroots organization in the state of Texas. We actually came down, I interviewed with 3 members of all 3 boards right here in Liberty, Texas, and they decided right here in this district to support me. The other was the Texas Deer Association. I think it's important that if you're successful in an industry, that industry stands behind you and helps back you, and they believe in you enough that you fight for what is right and that you can be a solid voice for the people right here in this district.
All right, this question is going to you first, Earnest Bailes. Would you do away with, and I'm rewording a question, somebody else's question here, trying to make it applicable to both of you, but would you do away with the current teacher retirement defined benefit plan and go to the defined contribution plan where teachers would have to be responsible for all investment and retirement planning?
I will not. I mean, I have taken the firm stance from the beginning. I am for a defined benefit plan. My opponent has taken the defined stance all the way through that he is for a defined contribution plan. We don't appreciate and pay our teachers enough. It is important that they know what benefits they will receive at the end of the day. And that's why I have been supported by all the teaching organizations. My opponent has not. The only teaching association he's been supported by has been the Homeschool Coalition. I'm also supported by the firemen and the policemen because they understand how important their retirement is and their livelihood. They are underpaid for the outstanding job that they do, and they need to know at the end of the day what their retirement will be so that they can live their life and they can serve, knowing they don't do it for the money. They do it because they feel that is what the right thing to do is.
All right, let's go to you now. Will we repeat the question?
No, sir, that's fine. Well, first of all, I wish I had an organization that would pay all my expenses and everything. It makes fundraising a lot more easier. So that's just blatantly another lie. But that's okay because as far as teaching is concerned, look, I help my parents. My mom taught 45 years here. I know exactly how much my mom and someone who taught 45 years of her life gets in retirement. It's not enough. I'll be frank, it's not enough. And fundamentally, I've never taken this position that my opponent just said I'd take, and I don't remember ever publicly doing this, but a promise made should be a promise kept by the Texas legislature. If we promise teachers a certain way of retirement, then I think we have to keep that promise. Now, however, do I think we need to find out alternative ways for teachers in order to make sure they have money at the end of their careers, like and have money to live off of? Absolutely. Because as it stands right now, the amount that a retired teacher gets, it's not a lot. And so, for future people who are going to come in, future teachers who are going to come and educate and take that time and make that sacrifice, I absolutely want to find ways for them to be able to find a retirement system that best fits them. Absolutely. And I think that's a great thing. I think that would be a benefit for teachers. So that's an easy one. And so. As far as teachers are concerned, I support them wholly. I don't know how someone gets a teacher's endorsement, but you can ask the teachers here locally if they support me. They do. Most of my former teachers support me, and they've given their lives to this education system. So does some Austin organization support me? I don't care. The teachers, locally, these people know me, and these people support me, and that's what I'm proud of.
All right, very good. This is going to be our last question. Which of the candidates does the retiring state representative? John Otto's been state representative for 12 years, I believe, as he ends his last term in office and opted not to run for re-election. So which of the candidates does the retiring Representative John Otto support? If you happen to know John Otto and trust John Otto, you might want to know his position on that. And we'll start with you over here, Earnest Bailes.
I am supported by John Otto in this race. I'm also supported by Wesley Hinch in this race, and a lot of the people who understand that I am here to represent the people of this district. I'm not here to represent my own agenda. I am a working class individual who has not lived his whole life just based on political posturing. I've lived my life to be a very valid very valid person and contributor to my community, where I am very involved and give back well before I ever planned to run. So I think it's important, and I'm appreciative to have the support of individuals who has also given their life to service, and they see in me a very good representative and someone who's going to be a solid voice for our rural district here in HD 18.
All right. Let's go to you, Keith, if you will, in your comments on regarding John Otto's support or lack thereof.
I do not. I don't have John Otto's support, and the idea that somehow I'm here because of political posturing. I've lived my life for political posturing. Is giving a year of my life to First Baptist Church as a youth pastor political posturing for $11,000? Is that political posturing? Is actually teaching in Dayton ISD actually 1 year as a permanent sub and not making teachers' salary, but giving 2 years of my life to Dayton ISD political posturing? That's the kind of stuff that's going on in this campaign right now. Instead of talking about issues, it's more, let's tear Keith down in order to build ourselves up. But what the truth is that Keith Strahan has built his life on serving people. That's what I love. That's what I'm passionate about. I'm not beholden to Austin's special interests. This idea that somehow that I have to vote a certain way is preposterous. The people who know me best support me because they know my principles. They know I'm a man of character. They know them. They have integrity. And so, the idea that I want to do this in order to further myself is an insult to what I've given this community, and I will continue to give. And I can't wait to represent Liberty County and this district in Austin, and truly show them what it means to have a compassionate servant who's going to come back there and come back and be frank and tell them the truth about what's going on in Austin. And that's what a lot of the political elites don't like. And that's why I frighten a lot of Austin establishment, is because I am willing to come back to Liberty County and tell you exactly what's going on in Austin. That's something you should want, and that's something you should need, and something you do need here in Liberty County. So I'm proud of what I've done, and so I have the support of the people who know me and the people who trust me, and that's what I'm excited about, and that's what got us first on March 1st, and that's what's going to take us through the finish line on May 24th.
All right, very good. We're going to go to closing statements now. I do want to remind everybody, early voting is Monday, May 16th through Friday, May 20th, and from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Locally, the locations for here in Liberty County, the locations for early voting is Jack Hartel Building, just down the street from the radio station here at 318 San Jacinto Street, Hardin City Hall on County Road 2010 in Hardin, Cleveland Civic Center at 210 Peach Street in Cleveland, and the Dayton Community Center at 801 South Cleveland Street in Dayton. Those are the early voting locations. Of course, you have your own ballot boxes for runoff election date, which is Tuesday, May 24th, and and those are the places we hope you'll take advantage of either the early voting opportunity or the runoff election day itself, Tuesday, May 24th. Not both of them, please. But, all right. Closing statements. Keith Strahan and Earnest Bailes have been our guests here today, and we appreciate very much them taking the time to be here. We hope it's been useful to them. I know it's been useful to our listeners, and we appreciate your participation very much as listeners calling in the questions, and boy, did you call in the questions. And we also appreciate the candidates being here and being a part of this. So, closing statements. And Earnest Bailes, you'll be first, and then you have a maximum of 1 minute, or any part of that 1 minute you choose to use. Thank you, sir, very much for being with us.
Thanks again, Bill. I appreciate you having us out this morning, as well as all the listeners that tune in to listen. Like I said, my name is Earnest Bailes, and I'm running to be your state representative. I'm a working class man who has built my life right here in the district. My wife, Courtney, has done the same, and that's where I raised my 2 sons. We've worked hard to give back to the community, to be involved, and quite simply just to do what's right. I think it's time, and it's very important that we have a working class individual to represent us in Austin, not a Houston attorney who does not know where he goes to sleep at the end of the night. I think it's important we have somebody who's well-grounded and who will always do a good job representing us and our rural interest here in HD 18. Once again, I ask for your vote and your support. Earnest Bailes, Shepherd, Texas, candidate for HD 18. Thank you.
All right, sir. Keith Strahan, the next 60 seconds or any part of that 60 seconds you choose to use is yours. Thank you, sir, very much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Bill. And I am very impressed about the amount of questions and the quality of questions that y'all brought this morning. Thank you all so much for that. And I hope and pray that you continue to ask such questions whenever I'm in Austin and hold me accountable on the votes that I make, because you know where I am. You know where I grew up. Ernest, you're welcome to come by the house I grew up and see where I lay my head down every night. But I'm one of you. This is where I learned my values. This is where I learned how to work hard. This is where my dad taught me the value of working hard, and this is where I learned. This is where I met Jesus. This is my home, and so I love this place. I love this district, and I'm going to represent this district in Austin. And those who know me best absolutely have no doubt that that's what's going to happen. And I'm so excited to do it. God bless y'all, and thank you for listening this morning.
And thank you very much, both of you, for being here. Thanks to our listeners. Again, I said that a while ago, but the questions are great. A lot of them. I couldn't get to every one of them. For that, I apologize. We tried our best to capsule some of the questions to get questions together and make them into one question. And sometimes we had 6 and 7 questions asked about the same subject. I hope we did a good job of getting as many of those question ideas on as possible. That's our broadcast for today. We thank you very much. Our next... What did I do with that sheet? I think that's it right there. What's our next one, Eric?
Next one is Friday.
Next one is Friday of this week, and on Friday of this week, we will have with us the candidates for Precinct 1 Constable, Justin Johnston and Craig McCowan. And we look forward to having them on Friday. We look forward to having you with us back here again. That's our broadcast for now. Thanks a lot for listening, and so long, neighbors.